Hi everyone, I'm Jim Fricker, Media Director at Zen Peacemakers. Welcome to our Peacemaker Circle. I'm really glad you're here with us today. Zen Peacemakers is an international, non-hierarchical network of peacemakers like you. We've been around for over 30 years with over 6,000 members in over 25 countries and 63 affiliate groups at this point. Aside from our in-person Bearing Witness retreats, everything we do is offered for free. If you're able to donate, becoming a paying member, or support in any way, it really does help. And no worries if you can't, everyone is welcome. There's a few ways you can stay connected: become a member on our community platform, subscribe to the Peacemakers podcast, sign up for our weekly newsletter, or make a small donation on our website. All of it is appreciated, and most of all, we appreciate your presence. So welcome to the first session of the 8-part series on the spiritual journey, the 10 Zen Ox Pictures with Genjo Marinello. These traditional Zen images and verses offer a powerful map for those walking the spiritual path, helping us reflect on our own challenges, growth, and potential for compassionate action. This recording begins just after the session has started, but we invite you to settle in. Open your heart and join us for this meaningful path of exploration.
It's a kind of flowering that I hope to share from my own experience of doing 50 years of Zen practice. And I'm also a Quaker, go to Quaker meeting here in Seattle. I am a psychotherapist and a spiritual director, so a spiritual companion to many. And what can I say? I've also done lots of Zen Peacemaker retreats and very much support and admire this organization. I've done 3 Auschwitz-Birkenau retreats. I've done 3 Alabama, Salem, Alabama, Montgomery, Birmingham retreats, looking at American racism. I've gone to Rwanda with the Zen Peacemakers 20 years after the genocide there. I've been in the Black Hills of South Dakota and in the Native American indigenous territories of Wyoming and Montana with Zen Peacemakers. What else have I done? Anyway, done 2 of those. And some people say to me, Genjo, do you like to take vacations and looking at the horrors of the world? And in a way, I guess I do. Because unless we're prepared to look at our collective underbelly that gives rise to things like genocide, how are we collectively going to grow or mature as a species in a way that there's at least less of it and not more of it? We seem to be in a sort of backsliding kind of, 4 steps forward, 1 hopes, but we're in a kind of 3 steps back kind of period, I think, not just in this country, but in the world. And I think it is ever more necessary that we find ways, whatever pathways they are, to connect with something beyond our narrow egoistic and self-preservation perspective in order to survive this century, let alone thousands of years. So I think it's pretty important that we look at pathways that may give us some hints of who we are at a deep level and some methods perhaps on how to approach our own depth and to access the ability to meet the pain and suffering, both personally and collectively, that we're all in this world that we call samsara, the world of coming and going and life and death. And how do we face this matter of this journey, very short journey in our lifetime, both personally and collectively, and do the best job we can to grow up personally and collectively. So that's what I want to be about. And I'm very happy to have all of you join with me. Let's see. Before we jump in, I'd like to do just a little 2-minute kind of guided meditation just to help us all settle, including myself. So I'll ask that everybody find a seat that feels comfortable and where you can also feel comfortable and also attentive. And I'll do a short guided meditation. Here we go. Taking a few moments to settle into this time and place wherever you might be. I see people from Germany and all over. So wherever we are, we're settling into this time and place and opening our hearts and minds to what is. Allowing ourselves to take slow, gentle, whole breaths and listen on all channels of perception to the symphony of now. Letting all thoughts, feelings, and sensations come and go with as little analysis or judgment as possible. Allowing this Zoom encounter to be like a symphony hall where we're all participating, listening to the symphony of now. So with all of our primary senses open, I'm leaving my eyes just a little bit open, my ears are open, my nose is open, my pores on my skin are open, every bone and fiber of my being is trying to be sensitive to what's going around me. And I'm also interiorly noting my own thoughts and feelings and sensations so that it's the symphony that's both inside and outside until those artificial walls that we have between inside and outside start to fall away. Listening in this way and planting our tailbones like a taproot deep into the center of Mother Earth and beyond into the black before black. Allowing our spines to be like antennas to the heavens, helping us recognize and nurture our own center of gravity at the nexus between the two. And as we sit and breathe and enter more fully this moment of eternity, all of our heart minds begin to open more broadly and perhaps even become more as one with each other. And may we join with all other open and well-rooted heart minds around the globe to embrace our very troubled world and our own journeys of trials and tribulations and joys and sorrows with a gentle, loving presence as I take a moment to meet the mail. Okay, let's put our hands in Gasho and make a little bow to each other. And welcome to this series on the Zen Ox Pictures. This first two we'll do 2 this session and 2 the next session, and then spend more time on each of the last 5 Zen Ox, 6 Zen Ox pictures. So one, I'd like to see if there's a show of hands of people who've ever encountered the Zen Ox pictures again. Just if you would raise your hand. Okay. Great. All right. So most people have. And how many people have read this book of mine, Awakening and Maturity? 1. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm just going to jump in, and please understand that you don't have to be a Zen priest or a meditation practitioner to understand that we all have a natural access to something beyond our narrow egoistic perspective that's mainly concerned with survival and holding on to the things that we have and trying not to lose them, even though even our intellect knows that we can't keep anything. I'm going to share a picture and verses that come from the Zen Ox Pictures. These are from 12th century Chinese Zen master Kuan, found in the book Zen Life by Koji Sato, and translated by Rodrun Victoria in a book printed by Weatherhill in 1977. You can look at the picture and then hear the following verse. In the pasture of this world, I endlessly put aside the tall grasses in search of the ox, following unnamed rivers, lost upon the interpenetrating paths of distant mountains. My strength failing and my vitality exhausted, I cannot find the ox. I only hear the cicadas singing through the forest at night. And then a commentary that goes along with it. The ox never has been lost. What need is there to search? Only because of separation from my true nature, I fail to find him. In the confusion of the senses, I lose even his tracks. Far from home, I see many crossroads, but which way is the right one, I know not. Greed and fear, good and bad, entangle me. All right. So I'm gonna, let's see, I can drop this also in the comments perhaps, just a moment. And if you want to bring that up on your screen separately, you can.
Genjo, if it's in the chat, I'm not sure it took, unless, are others seeing it in the chat?
No, you're not seeing it?
No.
Wait, oh, I didn't send it. Hold, here we go. Now it should, it's loading.
Okay, good.
You should have it now. Okay. So the ox is a stand-in for our deep nature. It's a symbolic stand-in for our deep nature. And we miss our deep nature from a Buddhist perspective, Zen Buddhist perspective, because we're caught in greed and fear. Think about that. That's pretty easy. and our conceptualizations, almost frozen conceptualizations of good and bad. That our kind of stuck conceptualizations of right and wrong, good and bad, and our own greed and fear end up entangling or hiding our deep nature. And we become kind of top-heavy in our discriminating mind, the mind that figures things out. We're great at figuring things out. We're great at problem solving. But we're not so great at dipping into nature, our deep nature, and the nature of the universe. And yet, that's very possible. And every religion and every spiritual tradition, even if it's not a great world religion, has various means on how to commune with our deep nature. And the ox, again, is a stand-in for that communion. And we start out feeling lost. We feel in the pasture of the world that we're lost in the grasses, and that we're going from place to place, feeling our strength drain and our vitality exhausted. And that's exactly what happens when we're not in touch with our deep nature. And so we all have an inkling that we're connected to something bigger than our narrow egoistic perspective. And we might find that in church, or we might find that hiking on a trail, or we might find that at the ocean, or we might find that at a high desert at night looking at the canopy of the stars. But we feel that there is something more, and we would love to have that connection more readily available. But very often we feel lost. But on occasion, when we hear the cicadas singing through the forest at night, we are moved. And we think, I need to be closer to nature with a capital N. And I need to feel this communion more readily in order not to feel so lost or caught by greed and fear and my own fixed thinking about right and wrong. Now, people will sometimes ask me, are the 10 Zen Ox Pictures linear? Well, they can be looked at that way. You're going from lost to found, let's say. And so it could be looked at linearly. But it's really more like a spiral. You go around and around and around. And you feel lost, and then you feel found. You feel lost, and then you feel found. And so it's really a journey, not a linear path. And I've come to a relatively new insight that somebody asked me seriously, you've been doing this 50 years, where are you on this path? And I said, I just spontaneously, what came out of my mouth was, I'm all of these at once. At once. So it's almost like some sort of quantum level where you're at multiple places at once. And I think we're in all of these places at once. Some are more familiar to us at various times. They're closer to consciousness. But in reality, we are every one of these positions at once. It does feel to me, though, in general, that I keep going around in a cycle, perhaps a wider cycle of lost and found, lost and found, lost and found. And it gives me the strength going around that circle to meet the horrors of today and the past, and to be able to look them straight in the eye and not be overwhelmed, and not be so caught by my own greed and fear and stuckness about right and wrong. So that's the journey we're beginning together. And that's what this first picture is about. And before we go on to the second picture, I want to open it up right now to any questions about what I've said so far. Because if we can't seem like we're on the same page, let's get it clear now. So just raise your hand, and if you have a question or a comment that you want to put up right now, if you're not feeling like I'm being clear in some way. I'm not seeing any hands. That always makes me think I'm either doing very well or very poorly, but okay. Okay.
Genjo, might I ask, is everybody able to open the PDF that Genjo attached in the chat? Okay, good.
All right. I see that one more person came. Let's see, Lydia, you're coming back. And I'm going to drop it into the chat just one more time so that anybody who showed up late gets it. Because I've discovered that you don't see it unless you were on the screen to begin with. All right. So the path is to realize from time to time we definitely feel lost. I think we all can feel that. And then we start looking one way or another, whether it's with Zen or Quakers or Native American spirituality or your own spirituality, of going to the mountains or or out on the water, or fly fishing. We all have different ways that we commune with something deeper than ourselves. And we start, I hope, building some repertoire of skillful means to bring us to a sense beyond our narrow egoistic perspective. And that we all know that how healing that is, and that it's restorative. And there seems to be an infinite amount of power when we are restored. I mean, we literally feel stronger and safer and clearer and more productive and able to be more responsible and more caring in the world because we've communed with something bigger than ourselves, however we choose to name it. I'm just going to call it nature with a capital N. All right, I'm going to share, and you can turn, but I'm going to share and read the number 2. Okay. So here's the picture of really looking for the ox and seeing the traces. And along the riverbank, under the trees, I discover footprints. Even under the fragrant grasses, I see his prints. Deep in remote mountains they are found. These traces no more can be hidden than one's nose looking heavenward. And the traditional commentary. Understanding the teaching, I see the traces of the ox. Then I learned that just as many utensils are made from one metal, so too are myriad entities made from the fabric of self. And this is self with a capital S. It's the self beyond self. Unless I discriminate, how will I perceive the true from the untrue? Not yet having entered the gate, nevertheless I have discovered the path. So indeed, this is the condition that we feel lost, and then we start to look. And indeed, we might look by the riverbank, or we might look in the mountains, or we might go to a Quaker meeting or a Zen group or it doesn't matter, Pentecostal church, it doesn't matter, you can find it anywhere. But you start to look and you find out that there are traces. You might see it in a sunset. You might see it in the symphony hall, feel it in the symphony hall. You might find it in a church. You might find it on a mountaintop. You might find it again under the stars at night in the high desert. And we get this little glimpse or hint of peace of mind. And then, of course, logically, we want some more of it. I had one fellow who is now a member of our community, but all he used to do was to hike, because hiking is where he found it. And now he's discovered that he can, and he didn't want to be around people. People were just too complicated, and the world was too crazy. And so all he wanted to do was have enough money to go hiking, period. That's it. And now he's a member of our community. He holds down a full-time job, helping people who are in the process of changing gender. He is getting prepared to be ordained in my Sangha. He's out and in the world and able to be in the world because he's found tools that have helped him not have to be hiking all the time in order to feel that communion. It's a lovely place to feel communion, but he's discovered he can do it right there, sitting in meditation. All right, let's look at this verse a little bit more carefully. We see the footprints everywhere. In the deep mountains, they're fine. By the riverbank, they're fine. Under the trees, they're fine. You can find them. And we discover at this point that if we open our eyes and ears, it's the traces are everywhere. And at this point in the journey, or in the circular journey, it feels like it's out there. Somehow it's out there. It's not in me yet, but it's out there. I feel this communion with something outside of myself. And indeed, we're not throwing away our discriminating mind, but we are looking for the traces with our discriminating mind and say, oh, yes, that's it. There's a glimpse, there's a taste. And we can start running towards those glimpses. And actually, the faster that we hurry in that way, the slower we go. But if we walk slowly in the woods, or sit by the riverbank, or climb the mountain, or walk in the desert, or walk on the beach, or listen to that beautiful symphony or music that's spiritual, could be a Gregorian chant, or a Hindu chant, or a Jewish chant, or a Sufi chant, it doesn't matter, or a simple rhythm and beat. We find the traces wherever we look if we open our eyes and start looking. And we start to be on the path because we realize that, wait a minute, there is something more. I knew there was, but I had an inkling there was, but now I'm starting to feel it, whether it's in the symphony hall or by the river or on the mountaintop or out in the woods. We're just seeing the sunset or watching the eagle fly. Any questions about this one? Really want to open it up to dialogue because these are the two that we're going to address this time around. Okay, Keith.
Thank you. I would say for me on this circular path, the concept of absolute and relative has been a useful way of thinking about it. And trying to find ways, in my mind, we have to live in the relative. Most of our life is somehow in time, and we plan for things, and we ruminate and we plan, and we are out of the now quite a bit. So I don't know if you want to comment on that perspective of the absolute and the relative, and the expectation in kind of related to that. Thanks.
Thanks, Keith, for that prompt. Yeah, I think of the absolute and the relative as two sides of the same coin. It's not like you are living in one or the other. We're living in both at once. We're just not usually aware of the absolute, and we're almost always aware of the relative. But it's like the relative is what's on top of the table, and the absolute is what's on the bottom of the table. And I mean, the top and bottom are always there, but we're not always aware of what's underneath the table. And when I'm using nature as a capital N or self with a capital S, I'm talking about what's under the table instead of what's on top of the table. But it's the same world. It's not the different world. And actually, the table itself is there isn't even a barrier there. But our brains are so devoted to what's on top of the table that we miss what's under the table, even though it's right there. It hasn't gone anywhere. Is that helpful, Keith? Okay. Yes, Jeff.
Genjo, could you say a word about this? And this is probably more my thought than substantive. But when we teach this, we use examples like the eagle, or the smell of the forest, or the stars at night, or Miles Davis, or whatever it might be. But can you say a little bit about that? It is also the traffic in downtown Seattle and the loss of a loved one, and things that are not necessarily so pleasant on their face.
Well, certainly a great sorrow, either birth or death, either one of those, being present for birth or death, is a gigantic catalyst into what's under the table. So it might be a great joy or it might be a great sorrow. Those are definitely like can openers. In terms of the traffic, that takes some practice. One of my early meditation teachers was a fellow by the name of Dr. Gleb Webb. He was an art history professor at the University of Washington, and he said, when describing meditation, that if you feel lost in the traffic because you're meditating and all you've got is this traffic jam of thoughts, feelings, and sensations, just imagine that you're going down beneath the traffic, like under a bridge, and you just let the traffic be what it is, and come down under the bridge and sit by the river that's under the bridge, and just let the traffic be. So you really can't stop the traffic. Sometimes the traffic will be very gone. There's no traffic at all. Other times it's a traffic jam, and often when we're living in the city, we have so much stimuli that it feels like a traffic jam all the time, which is why a lot of people like to live in the country. So it's a little harder to feel it in the traffic jam. And yet, I must say, I've gotten to the point where it's not that I love traffic, but I love driving even in traffic, because I have to be so alert and I have to be so present. And instead of being a terrible thing, it's a chance to practice alert driving and peace of mind, even though it's a difficult situation in which to do so. So I always look at it as a challenge. Steve.
It sounds to me like we get these traces through our sensory perceptions frequently, but that we know we have it by a feeling that we have inside. And I just wonder if you want to comment on that.
Yes, indeed. It looks like it's outside, especially in the beginning of the circle. It feels as though it's outside, but we're having the feeling, as you say, Steve, inside. That's correct. And eventually, as we move on to the circle, we then really start having that feeling inside and knowing that the eagle spirit or the forest spirit is right there inside of you. In the beginning, though, it feels a bit more remote, and it's like, oh, what a beautiful symphony, or what a beautiful sunset. And yes, we're having a feeling, but it feels somewhat remote or disengaged. Is that helpful, Steve?
Mm-hmm. It seems like for a lot of us, you might say, success in life does depend on our cognitive skills. And I think we're pointing at something else in this conversation, which has not so much to do with the discriminating mind.
Oh, I agree with you completely on that, and thanks for making that point. The discriminating mind helps us tune in the footsteps, but it's a lower chakra that registers the feeling. And it's a different part of our brain, literally a different part of our brain that feels communion. All right, I see, is it Noah?
Yeah, hi, Noam. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, Genjo. I signed up for this class on just a whim and like a gut feeling that this would be helpful. And I'm already appreciating it, so thank you so much.
Is your camera on? No?
My camera?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I see you now.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Yeah. My question or comment, I guess it's a comment, but then it's a question, is that I feel like for me, it's sort of originally and now, as my practice develops more and my understanding develops more, the thing, the clue, the first taste of peace was love, was connection to other human beings, and I just noticed that it's kind of been it's been parenthetical, but it hasn't been directly pointed to it. And for me, what I'm in the process of trying to learn is that just like any other, whether it's birds in a forest or I guess traffic, that's trickier, but that they're all pointing to the same thing, and that I am working on finding that outside of relationship with others, but that's where it begins for me. So I appreciate any comments you have on that.
Well, I thank you very much for bringing that up, because sometimes where we feel communion most directly and most immediately is indeed when we're in love. When we're in love with a child, or in love with a partner, or in love with a friend, or in love with a community. And we are feeling that kind of communion of being a part of oneness, in love with another person, or even with a community. And certainly that's a treasure. And by the way, you can even start with in love with yourself, and not in a narcissistic way, but just in a deep admiration of the miracle of life. So it's indeed, wherever you look, you'll find it. And usually the glimpses are, human beings are so complicated that it's oftentimes easier to feel it in nature, out in nature, than it is with another human being, just because we're so complicated. We're so richly complicated. But of course, you can feel it just looking in the mirror. Of course, you can feel it in love with a partner or a child or a dog, even. It does. When there is love, you're beginning to tap it.
Yeah, thank you so much, and they're making me think that another area of another edge and place I would like to feel it is love with anybody, not just people who I already know and am close to. So thank you so much.
And when we are deeply rooted, we are in love with everybody and everything and every encounter. Lydia, you had your hand up.
Yes. I wonder what your observations are about this circle or path. What differences you see for when folks have prolonged suffering. I do a lot of work inside of prisons, and whether it's the prison environment itself or wrestling with the actions that have gotten some folks there, or extreme learning or mental health challenges. Has it been your observation that the path unfolds the same and it's the same?
That's a big question and a great question, and thank you for it. I don't think I might have never started a deep path towards this broader awakening or communion if it hadn't been for my own suffering. And I have an early abuse history that I didn't even know it was the motivation for the path. But in hindsight, I know it's the motivation for the path. It's why I started looking for something beyond myself, because I was frankly so screwed up and convoluted from this personal history that I had to find some path out of my own confusion and sense of conflict and sense of anger and abandonment and abuse. So that certainly got me looking. And in the prison work that I've done, when people come to meditation, and I've gone to lots of different prisons, it indeed, if the people who are coming to, sometimes they're coming because they're going to get a good meal. Because in Walla Walla, when I go to the prisons, they get chicken, fried chicken. But I think there are people are genuinely there because they have been prompted to the path because things are so bad, or have been so bad. And that people really want to find a way out of physical prison and interior prison. And so indeed, I think great suffering, as Jeff was saying, can be the catalyst to the journey. Any other hands up or comments? Any thoughts, Daniel? No, okay. Daniel's a good friend from Germany. Tom?
Hi, I'm Tom, and I'm
You want
used to hearing the word Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm used to hearing the word egotism quite a bit, but today you used the word egoism 3 or 4 times. And I spent part of this session looking up egoism because I wasn't quite sure what you were saying when you used the word egoism. So could you maybe talk about that a little bit?
So I didn't use the word egoism, Tom. I used the narrow egoistic perspective. Narrow egoistic.
Okay, well, in that context.
Yeah. So when we're stuck in our narrow egoistic perspective, it's like having blinders on. We see, but it's very narrow view. And when we start to commune with one way or the other that we've talked about so far, our vision expands. So I love my expanded vision, and I feel it get narrow, especially when I'm caught by my own anger or greed. I feel it's like I get tunnel vision, and I know what that feels like, and I'm getting stuck in what I'm calling my narrow egoistic perspective, and it's like tunnel vision. And then I do things that help me commune with something beyond that view. And I can start to breathe, and I can start to see things and around corners and see people for who they are in a better way. And I can get past my own anger and greed and my own instincts of survival, which I need. I need my anger and greed, my instincts of survival. But they create a kind of tunnel vision when that's all I've got. And I'm much more, and you are much more than that. Does that help, Tom? Come back on, Tom. Did you hear that, Tom?
I'm sorry, I gave you the thumbs up. Yeah, I heard it. Thank you.
Okay. Someone asked for me to put the picture back up of, which one was it? The second picture, here we go. Put that up. And I will drop the PDF again in the Dropbox here in a moment so that you can have this at home. You'll know exactly what I'm referring to. Okay, did you have a question after seeing this?
Genjo, is it possible for you to make that bigger?
I'll work on it.
It may just be my old eyes, but
Hold on. What I can do here. Ooh. Is that bigger?
that's great.
I'm going to stop the share now so that I can see better. And once more, I will put this into the chat and you can download it for yourself. It's just the same thing that I did before you, so you don't have to download it if you've already have. And Kathleen, did you have a question about those verses?
No, I just was, I don't have the second picture dropped in. It's two of the same one. And then the one you just showed, I don't see how to download it.
Actually, the PDF file should have all the pictures in it.
Okay, then that's simpler. Thank you.
Yep. And if anybody has questions about those specific verses, if you are looking at 1 and 2 today, and there's anything that feels cloudy or unclear or not that you would like to ask some question about, go ahead, Stephen.
Well, these verses, in a way, for me, are a metaphor. And when I read the last line, it says, "These traces can no more be hidden than one's nose looking heavenward." When I look heavenward, I don't see my nose.
Yeah. Right.
And I just wonder, So it seems like a paradox there that we don't see our own noses looking heavenward.
Actually, I'm looking heavenward and I see the tip of my nose. Maybe I have a long nose. Yeah, it's there, all right. But it's full of, Zen is full of these kind of metaphors that look at, that say one thing and almost say the opposite at the same time. Anyone else's comments or questions? Go ahead, Mary.
I'm absolutely fizzing with delight right now for this very reason. I had wanted to learn more about finding the traces of the ox. And of course, I didn't know until this morning when Jeff said during the Zen Peacekeepers Zazen, well, there's going to be 8 sessions. It was so serendipitous.
That's great. I love to hear that.
I'm sitting here, I'm actually sitting here with John Dado Lurie's Stages on the Path of Enlightenment with a picture, the very same drawings.
Uh-huh.
So I'm making notes like mad at everything that's being said.
Great.
Because I feel like a child again. I feel like a child again. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. And Sarah.
Yes, ditto. Thank you so much. I'm still, I guess, ruminating on the part about unless I discriminate, how will I perceive the true from the untrue, and discerning the path. And is there one path? When I see a lot of paths.
Yeah, no, there are lots of paths. So you can find the traces everywhere, it says. And it looks like different utensils, but really they're made out of the same metal. So there's lots of paths. There's not just one path up the mountain, then you could say. There's lots of paths, infinite number of paths, truly infinite number of paths. And you can find the traces anywhere you look hard enough. And the discriminating mind, just like finding footprints, you say, oh, there's a footprint. And your discriminating mind does that, but your heart is the one that's telling you, oh, that's communion or that's love. But your discriminating mind is saying, ooh, there's the trace. And your heart is feeling it. You're feeling, ooh, that moves me. Okay? Here's another thing that, when we're feeling lost, I use this metaphor, that it's a lot like I can barely see through my hand. I'm peeking through at you through these webbed hands. And the going around the circle might loosen up the knots of our confusion and conflict and convoluted karma that we are all baggage that we're all carrying, and it gives me some distance. It doesn't much change this, but my goodness, the world looks a lot different with my hands out here. I can see under, I can see over, I can see around, and all of my karmic baggage is still there, but it's not right up against my eyes. I get to even see what it is better. And that's very helpful. Jeff.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll try not to dominate here, but and I'm glad you said what you just did, because it leads into my comment or my question for you. Early on, when we're just beginning this practice, it can be very discouraging because of that, right? And Robert Aiken used encouraging words even as a title to his book, and encouragement is what we need a lot of, and probably as well to be lost and lonely and on our own and struggling a bit as well is helpful too. Can you say a little bit about encouragement? And in these first two images, is there encouragement there for us?
Yes, definitely. I mean, first of all, in the very first picture, we hear the cicadas singing through the forest at night. So even though we're feeling very lost, there's always this little hint that there's something deeper going on. And we might not be able to put it, we might not be able to claim it with any kind of faith, but there are these hints all the time, all around us. And I described it as above the table and beneath the table. There are these hints of what's beneath the table, all around us. And we just have to keep our hearts and minds open to them. And we internally feel, even when we're very, very lost, we say, I'm very, very lost. I think I know there's something more than being this confused and lost and conflicted. There has to be something more. And we're encouraging ourselves. And then, when we get to the second picture, we're actually tasting it. Again, it doesn't matter if it's in the symphony hall or in the mountains or on the beach or at the river or in the forest or in church or making love. It doesn't matter. But there's something that moves us, and we start being able to see the traces all over the place. There's still just traces at this point in the circle, but thank goodness, there are hints of the trail everywhere. And Mary, did you have another question? Go ahead, Mary.
I had a temptation before I heard Jeff speak of your presentation today. The temptation would have been to have joined what I consider to be safe, forgive me, old ladies groups locally and hear the same thing regurgitated over and over again.
Okay.
There's a lot of safety in that at almost age 80 for me.
Yeah.
I am 78 years old.
Yeah.
I want firecracker and newness and pizzazz and new learning. And I want to jump up and down with it.
Well, I'm hoping that as a young 70-year-old, I'm providing a little of that.
Definitely. Kudos to you because there's always those safe choices. You can always go and hear what people have done 50 years ago and what they don't plan on unbending from. And this is scary. This is one of the scariest things about being alive right now, is jumping back into that safety where we stagnate and don't grow.
Yeah.
At any rate, I'm taking notes like mad on everything that everybody says, because everybody here is my teacher.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. And when Trump got elected to his second term, I just wanted to be an ostrich, put my head in the ground. It was just felt so antithetical to moving forward. And I really had to remind myself that evolution does not happen linearly. You have to take a very long view to see evolution of spirit and compassion move in the human species. I think it is a kind of 4 steps forward, 3 steps back kind of process. And will that be enough to not kill the planet prematurely? Because the planet is also temporary. We cannot save the planet. We've had life on this planet for 3 billion years. 1 billion years from now, there will be no life on this planet. That's just a fact. But we shouldn't commit suicide. Come on.
Genjo, there's Chris has a question in the chat.
Okay,
Uh,
let's go to that, and then I'll go to Carol. Ah,
Great question.
yeah, great question. You know, I think standing in the shower in Auschwitz would be just terror and panic, not finding the ox. I'm not even sure the historical Buddha, despite all of the mythology, or the historical Christ, could manage it. You know, even Jesus on the cross said, "Why have thou forsaken me?" And I'm quite sure I would be in "Why have thou forsaken me?" If I were standing in the showers, raining cyanide in Auschwitz. On the other hand, it's clear from things that I've read that the people who were ready these are in the concentration camps, who are waiting to die, or in the labor side of the camp, where on average you had 3 months to live, and you would die from starvation or something else, but give 3 months of labor to the Third Reich. When people would attempt suicide, which it seems to me I might have, one of the conclusions I've had going back to Auschwitz is that I would have walked into the electric fence. That would have been probably my choice of solution, had I been in that side of the camp and not immediately gone to the gas chamber. But what the resistance inside the camps was, is they would often wait for people to attempt suicide by getting something to put around their neck and hang from a rafter. They would save them and say, well, since you're ready to die, you're ready to be part of the resistance, and we can trust you because you're already totally ready to die. And this readiness to die is really part of the spiritual journey. That sounds strange, perhaps, but only when we are really willing to put our egoistic or ego in the backseat can something like what's represented by the ox be driving the car. And in a way, you have to be ready for death to really have the ox lead instead of one's ego lead. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. We'll see that a little later in the pictures. Did I do okay, Chris? Did you have more questions? You want to come online? I'm going to switch to Carol.
Thank you, Genjo, for your response to Chris. That was actually addressing what was on my heart mind. And I think I'll just let it stand and not try to say anything more about it. Just take that in. Thank you.
You know, I would wish for myself, if I were in the showers, that I would be in this terrible horror and panic. But like Jesus on the cross, maybe, just maybe, gotten to a place, into thy hands I commend my spirit. Maybe I could have gotten there. I would not hold it against me if I didn't. So here's another question in the chat. We will we'll have to ask ourselves as we approach our death, whether the gas chamber or otherwise. Can you restate that some other way?
Yeah, sorry, I'll just say it. Just finding the ox, or the traces of the ox.
Well, I think death is a great access point. I can kind of guarantee, money back guarantee, you will find the ox at death if you haven't already, because at that point, you're going under the table entirely. So you can't be anywhere but in the absolute. That's my bet anyway. But, whether we face our demise with peace of mind or not, it remains to be seen. I suspect I will, and if I've given, we have a prayer in Zen that we have a couple of weeks of notice, and that we can take that we can meet the idea that we're totally mortal and we have 1 or 2 weeks to live with some peace of mind. I hope all my 50 years of training comes in handy for that. But if we die suddenly or slowly, the death isn't the problem, it's the dying that's the problem. In my view. And, every time I've been in the hospital, and I've been in the hospital 3 different times, I've enjoyed it. So far, so good. I had a kidney removed to give to my sister, and I had an operation on my spleen, on my bladder, because actually I think it might be related to my early abuse history, but I don't need to go into that. And every time I've been in the hospital, it's been like, okay, I give a lot to a lot of people, and that's fine. But now people get a chance to give a lot to me, and I just enjoy being the center of attention. No, did I get to your question or not? Yes.
I'm just thinking about it. Thank you. It was helpful what you said. Yeah.
All right. Keith.
Yes, going back to Tom's question and about ego and talking about the blinders and peeking through them in the ego self, I, on this circular journey, have struggled with being judgmental.
No.
And, it seems to me, I'll make a judgmental comment that so many people are not on any kind of path or seeking and are caught up constantly in the blinders. And that's, I really struggle internally with not wanting to be judgmental about that. And why can't you do something to, help yourself? Really, it's to help yourself. So I don't know. That's kind of where I am now on this circle.
I was watching a PBS program last night on Bill Moyer. He followed these families over decades. Anybody familiar with that? For about at least 30 years, he followed several families. And one of the themes that came up was that there are so many people who are working hard in every way and not making it. And people who had homes and then lost their homes, and working 2 or 3 jobs and not being able to barely make things meet. And when we are stressed in that kind of way, and enough of us are stressed in that kind of way, where you're working as hard as you can and you can't make ends meet, I think that's a lot of why Trump got elected. There's just so many people who have been in practically, this pure survival mode that anything's got to be better than this. I see the same thing was probably going on in the 30s in pre-war Germany when Hitler came to power. It was likely that people were just so sick of being on the edge for so long, personally and collectively, that they could not get past this or their blinders, and then made choices based on their blinders or blindness. And I have to be forgiving about that. I don't want to be forgiving about that. Well, how could you do that? But I think I get it better, even having watched this program yesterday on PBS, and it was on demand, I'm sure, with Bill Moyers, like the last installment of following like several different families over the course of 3 decades. And some people had progressed in a way that they felt stable, and that you could see that they were seeing a wider view, and others were still just working as hard as they could, running the rat race and not getting anywhere. And then there's another set of people who are caught in their narcissism in such a way that they become, as adults, kind of Machiavellian. And that's a whole different story. But they tend to be the ones who can appeal to people's fear and to the idea that they have the answers, that will save them out of this misery that they find themselves in. And so, oddly, I still try to stick to everyone's doing the best they can. And, even the people who are stuck in their own narcissism and have succeeded in some Machiavellian way, sadly, they aren't even doing the best they can. And that minimizes my getting stuck in my judgment. Does that help, Keith?
Yes, thank you. Yes, it also helped to poke at the idea of a hierarchy of needs, because I've taught school in Africa, and I used to think maybe we could sit and meditate together, but then I thought, I don't think that. I don't know. It would be an interesting idea, maybe, but it seemed like when you are living on $3 a day and you don't have enough to eat, that sitting with someone in meditation might be a leap. Too much of a leap.
On the other hand, I've been around populations that have been very poor in my terms, and yet seemed very happy, or much more well-adjusted than many folks who've got much more money. So it depends so much on the culture, and whether the culture or the society is in a structured, safe way. Then the amount of money or possessions doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I really was speaking of people who are well off in our society, that are seem to have blinders on, and your comment about how you reconcile judging, or you're at least aware of it. That's helpful.
Well, our greed is a big problem, and our fear is a big problem. We all have an existential fear of loss and of annihilation and of abandonment. And it's an existential fear, and it's that kind of fear is down there in order to and move us towards community and to move us towards love and to move us towards a sense of basic safety. So these are not things that we can get rid of, greed and fear. But, you know, it's like a disease that goes into overdrive because we're not connected to something deeper. And that, which is why it's so important that humans figure out how to reconnect really to something deeper. Because I don't think the rest of the animal kingdom is so out of joint as we are. Yes, go ahead, Barry.
Can you address the idea of surrender?
Okay. You want to say more about the context of surrender?
No, because I want to see what you do with it.
Okay. You know, there's a mantra. Some people might say, let go, let God. I like to say, let go, let be. And this letting go and letting be what is. Relax. Take a deep breath. Let go, let be. Let go, let be. This is a kind of mantra. And that's the kind of surrender that I think you're pointing at. And that I try to do on the cushion or anytime I'm feeling disjointed or lost. Let go, let be is a mantra that comes to me. Sometimes the only thing I can do if I'm feeling particularly wound up is to go clean something. And I can surrender to the activity of cleaning or mowing the lawn or getting out in the garden or cleaning the bathroom or cleaning the kitchen or cleaning the refrigerator or something like that. And that I can lose myself, which is a different kinds of surrender, in some activity. And that's another way to surrender, is to lose myself in some activity. So, and that might be swimming, or that could be kayaking, or that could be cleaning the kitchen. It's like, go do something where I can lose myself in the activity. I love to ride my bike, and there's a park near where I am called Seward Park. And I try to ride around the whole park, which is about a 3-mile loop, riding my bike, not holding the handlebars. And I have to be in that activity to do that. I can't be someplace else. I have to surrender to the balance of the bike. And that's what I would connect with when I hear the word surrender. Well, I know we're supposed to go just a few more minutes, but I got a message from my wife, who has pretty severe disability, that she'd like to be picked up at a bus stop. So I think I'm going to close for now and see you all next week, I hope, for the next 2 pictures.
Wonderful. Thanks everybody for being with us, and do come join next Monday, same time, same link. So hope to see you then.